into conversation and present a product we were developing together with a lot of partners from the German side. You see on the screen partners of our project, partner countries, private sector, and also institutions which are joining us with their knowledge. So I'm very happy that so many partners are already part of our initiative. We know the world is changing. We don't have to stress again here on the global challenges we're all facing, but what at the end of the day is crystal clear is that we have to do more, also financially more, and we have to join alliances with like-minded governments, but not only governments, also with private sector, with science, with everybody who really wants to contribute to solve our problems on the planet. That's why we're here in Seville. That's why we are trying to bring the sectors together. As a German government, we had meetings to bring all the stakeholders in one room or in one session already last November, where we launched our first Hamburg Sustainability Conference, which is there for creating new ideas, bringing stakeholders together, private sector, public sector, science, civil society, to come up with creative ideas. And one of those ideas were that we have to do more on finance, on public-private merging, and then financing on the public-private sector. The good news is that's not something totally new. Of course, you all know there are already funds. There are already funds, also public-private funds. There's blended financing already existing. That's on the one hand the good news. On the other hand, we were asking, why is it not good enough on the ground? Why do we not get enough funds? Why do we not get enough financing through those tools and instruments to the ground, on the ground where it is needed, and where industry, economies, states, entrepreneurs are requiring those tools for also affordable financing. So we have to overcome structural challenges. That's what was one of the outcomes at the Hamburg Sustainability Conference. And as it was pointed out, we were coming up with the idea of scaling capital for sustainable development. And that is an example how we really can, as a country, as Germany, be part of the global community who wants to achieve the SDGs and wants to really come into the financing momentum. As I was pointing out, we're of course not doing it alone. That would be the wrong attitude anyway, and I'm really happy that we were, from the beginning, in the recent months, joined by partners, by governments like Canada, Denmark, France, South Africa, the United Kingdom, and that from the beginning on already, private sector was engaged and was partner. I name it simply Allianz, AXA, La Caisse, Zurich Insurance Group. And I'm also very pleased that partners like the Inter-American Development Bank or the OECD are here to support us with their knowledge on the ground, because that is of utmost importance, that we get the knowledge and the institutions who bearing that knowledge also in our platform. We want to introduce Scaled here in Seville. We want to come into discussion with you. The new things would be the standardization, I would say, that we really come up with frameworks which makes it easier and make it applicable in other circumstances, not only for one singular momentum, and therefore also become quicker, because at the end of the time, it's also end of the day, it's also about timing and being timely. And as we know, we are running out of time. Hunger is on the rise, crises are on the rise, the need for investment is growing, so we are running out of time, so we cannot discuss forever. As the Prime Minister of Spain was saying today in his remarks, we have to come from words to action quickly, and we have to be reliable on that. And that's why we really want to come up with that initiative. I want to thank all the partners. I want to thank you for your interest in that. And I want to really come into discussion with our experts here also. If I'm running out from the room in, I don't know, 20 minutes or 10 minutes, it's not because I don't think scale is really worth discussing it for a longer time. It's simply because I have to be on another panel. But thank you for being here, and we're looking forward to your questions on the topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kofler, for these very kind words. And I'm now very pleased to present what SCALED really is about. So SCALED, as we've just heard, stands for Scaling Capital for Sustainable Development. We are a pretty much one-of-a-kind initiative between governments and large private investors. And I think that's the beauty of it. It's really unique in its setup. We started, as just mentioned, as Hamburg Sustainability Platform last October. We currently consist of those mentioned 6 governments and the private investors. So therefore, we are also very happy that, as you can see also here, we have the OECD and the Inter-American Development Bank as knowledge partners, but we also have KfW as an implementation partner on behalf of also the BMZ. So therefore, we really have the full strength we need in order to really be able to go ahead. And as you can see also, they're quite packed schedules, as we've just heard from Dr. Kofler. So therefore, not all of those representatives can be here. But as you surely know, this is a part of the game. So if there were any questions also related to such members, please don't hesitate and come to me also later. I can't answer them, but at least I can direct you towards the people who could. So what's the problem we are facing with many blended finance transactions? And Dr. Kofler already alluded to that. They are set up, the blended finance investment vehicles are set up between public and private investors in order to generate either environmental or social impact. And at the same time, they also need to generate the return, which is then adequate for such said private investors. So therefore, combining those two worlds is quite a delicate operation. And I've done it myself, so therefore I know there are many barriers which one has to overcome. That might be language, terms who differ, time spans differ, experiences differ, also with regards to what works and what doesn't, and accordingly it's also very hard to set up blended finance. So you need a lot of stars to align in order to have it done. So therefore it takes a long time, and time is of the essence, so I think we are speeding up. But in order to reach scale, we also have to be faster in such that transaction, because everything is moving so much faster. Interest rate change is faster. So if we don't become faster in setting up blended finance solutions, we really have a problem, and we can't really go in speed. So therefore, it is about 2 things what we are heading. Firstly, we want to enhance industry standardization. We have that as an overall mission, and also we want to take standardization into practice. For this latter part of the initiative, we will set up a new and first of its kind company, which is exclusively working on the structuring of blended finance investment vehicles in cooperation with those partners, but also third-party partners we're happy to board on. Other governments, development finance institutions, but also asset managers and other interested parties are very welcome to join. That could be either as part of the initiative or also as part of the future vehicles we're setting up. The company will support and steer the setup of blueprint blended finance structures. So we will really implement standardization. We will not just think about it, we will bake it into our solutions, and that's new and that's different. And so therefore, we will, as a use the knowledge we as a development finance community have been able to be building up over the last year. And we work on harmonizing the documentation and processes, to only provide a first of examples. So this company will work as a specialized transmission box between public and private. So if the Spanish Prime Minister says, we should be getting faster, so how can the private sector become faster in running blended finance? And this is what we're addressing. So we're an operations-driven initiative, and I think this is also something which makes us rather unique. So therefore, we will become more efficient. Larger investments will be able to be made within blended finance, and in turn, this will allow us to generate higher impact, because this is also a function of how much more money can we mobilize. So we are asset operations-driven, which will produce new blended finance vehicles at a higher speed. We jointly already did a lot of learning and theory around blended finance over the years. Now we need to implement, and this is what Scaled will do, and this is also why our name is Scaled. We shall operate without geographic or regional focus and have the only target to really amplify the investments into SDGs, invest potentially in all of them, and we want to become a motor of implementing the Agenda 2030 and beyond with a large coalition of actors. We will be open to all interested parties, as said, and we will contribute to a broad set of objectives in the FFD4 outcome document, so which also translate into key FFD4 objectives to put them into actionable implementation. So therefore, ultimately, we're very proud and happy to form part of the Seville platform for action. So now, as I've tried to give you a very crisp overview, it's also time to really let our members speak. And as we consist of several public and private players, we are happy to have some of them with us. So please join me in welcoming Bob Ray, who's Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Canada to the United Nations in New York. Andrea Hauser, and the panelists please already come to us. Andrea Hauser is Department Head, Non-Financial Risk, Global Equity and Funds, MENA region, KfW. Eric Krypton, Director, Business Relations of Lacasse. And Mostafa Zeye is Lead Emerging Markets, Alternative Investments and Blended Finance Solutions with AXA. So, if I may ask Mr. Ray to start with a statement towards Scaled.
Thank you very much. I have a political background, so I'm very familiar with speaking to crowds of this size. So it's not a problem for me at all. I don't take it personally. The only thing I would have suggested to my organizers, if something like this, when something like this used to happen, I'd say, let's try and find a smaller room so we can make that work. Seriously, it's a great pleasure to join all of you today, and I'm very proud to represent Canada in support of scaling capital for sustainable development. This event, really happy to be doing it here. Happy to be doing it in my other hat as president of ECOSOC. We announced, the Prime Minister of Canada announced a major initiative at the Hamburg Sustainability Conference, where this was intended to be done. We also announced a major initiative at Kananaskis, where we not only made an announcement that was about intention, it was also about money. And Canada is putting real money behind this initiative. I just came from a meeting with the SIDS where we were talking about climate finance and adaptation, infrastructure finance, and this issue of where is the private capital, where is the public-private partnerships that will make a difference, and where is the blended finance and the subsidization that's required in order to get it going. So I was under strict instructions not to make any announcements at the SIDS conference because I didn't want to take away from this particular meeting. But I think it's clear to everyone that public capital alone cannot solve where we are as quickly as a combination of public and private and domestic revenue generation and all kinds of other elements which are going to be required. And the theme of the meeting that I just attended was about something we called the implementation gap. We know the concept, we know the ideas, we know the intentions. What we don't have is implementation, is actually scalable projects that can be done with increasing speed and in real time that will make the critical difference that has to be made. I think it's fair enough to say that blended finance has been a potential solution for a long time and has been talked about widely. And Canada has decided, together with Germany and together with many other players, to make a major investment that will create a big enough fund that will in fact be able to move quickly into a field where we talk often, but it's true, we need to be able to go from billions to trillions. But the thing that we need to have is the granular examples of success. And we need to be able to develop the expertise and to share that expertise with developing countries, with private companies, with other sources of capital, so we can begin to turn this into a much more deep-seated exercise than ever before. And the principles that have been co-led by France, Germany, Italy, the United Kingdom have advanced beyond the discussions that we had many years ago. And the common principles reflect a shift towards more system-wide approaches that can unlock private capital at scale. The world is in a state, I would say right now, where effectively we have to try everything. We have to keep on trying to generate sufficient capital investment that we will in fact be able to turn the corner on climate change, both in terms of the adaptation that's required and the heavy investment that needs to happen there, as well as with respect to the issues about reducing emissions and creating alternatives. But this initiative is not just about climate change. It's about any form of social investment that helps us to achieve a more sustainable society. And as we all agreed in 2015, we know what these goals are. We want them to happen. We want to move towards them. We want this to be a success. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Wish everybody the very best. And if I have to run away, it's for the same reason that our last speaker had to run away. This is like, I don't know what to call it, sort of some kind of dating into speed dating or something like that. It's a sort of contest where you have to get your message out as quickly as you can. But I'm delighted that this is not just a speech. This is actually about a substantive announcement that we're able to make. And we're very proud to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Andrea, may I ask you?
Yeah, sure. And I will not run away after this event. So if there are any questions, feel free to meet me here. For us, as KfW, private sector mobilization, I would say is part of our DNA, especially in challenging contexts like impact investment in emerging markets. And we've been structuring landmark blended finance transactions over the last 15 years with a lot of lessons learned. And we have seen a lot of success, but we had also seen some failures. But one thing we haven't seen so far, no one has managed with blended finance to tap into mainstream institutional investment. And that's why we still lack scale. And that's why we as KfW are very happy and pleased to be part of this really lighthouse initiative. And we will do our part to ensure the success. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Eric, could I ask you?
Yes, thank you, Martin. And friends and colleagues, I'm really, really delighted to be here in Seville on behalf of La Caisse de dépôt et placement du Québec as part of the founders of the Scaled Initiative. I really couldn't think of a better conference at which to introduce this new blended finance partnership. And for me personally, this really represents the coming full circle of a journey that began 10 years ago. For at this very conference in 2015, I had the privilege of being part of the official Canadian delegation and had the honor of serving as Canada's lead negotiator on the chapter of private business and finance of the Addis Ababa Action Agenda. And that framework was groundbreaking in many ways, including its recognition that private capital flows would be the second most important source of capital after domestic resources for achieving sustainable development. And the Addis Agenda also identified a suite of powerful tools that would enable the mobilization of this private finance, such as in paragraph 48, which contained the first ever intergovernmentally agreed reference to blended finance. But in full honesty, I think most of us who were part of those efforts 10 years ago will be somewhat disappointed by the results we've achieved since then. Per Convergence's most recent flagship report, since 2015, blended finance has mobilized in total about 249 billion in transactions in emerging markets. That is not a small number, to be sure, but it's not close to what is needed to bridge the SDG financing gap. And it remains well short of the 600 to 650 billion in private finance that will be required annually to reach the global target of 1.3 trillion in climate action finance as called for in the NCQG as agreed last year at last year's COP in Baku. But despite that, I really do remain very optimistic. For over those same 10 years, the engaged private sector has undertaken a lot of reflection on why the flow of capital has remained below its potential. And the good news is that through a growing body of literature, we've now identified the key obstacles that have inhibited private capital mobilization at scale. And the even better news is that many of us are taking specific actions to address these obstacles. For example, just 2 weeks ago, we at La Caisse announced our new climate strategy, which includes the new goal of holding 400 billion in climate action assets by 2030. This is part of our overarching commitment to achieve a carbon neutral portfolio by 2050, while both promoting the decarbonization of the real economy and fully respecting our fiduciary duty through the creation of long-term value for our depositors. And this is what the Scaled initiative is all about, and why we at La Caisse are so proud to be among its founders. For at its core, it's really a manifestation of SDG 17 on partnerships that brings together the very best thinking from the public and private sectors in pursuit of specific solutions to bring about the much needed standardization and replicability to the blended finance ecosystem, which itself is ultimately a means towards the larger goal of creating investable opportunities that enable the leveraging at scale of the private sector's capital and knowledge towards climate action and SDG-aligned investments in emerging economies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you, everyone. So I won't be very long. Fortunately, in this conference, we don't need to spend time explaining why it is important that we invest more in EMDCs. If you're already here, I assume that you are convinced on that. But I would say that for us in AXA, expanding in emerging market is really an investment decision. We really seek higher returns than our normal investments for over medium to long term. But more importantly, we seek diversification and the resilience of our portfolio. That's why we have been doing some investments. We have been seeking investment opportunities in EMDCs. But what we have done so far has been a series of very good one-offs that hasn't been evolved into an asset class for us. When we talk about investments in emerging markets, we are talking about that fund and that initiative. We are not talking about an asset class. Why? Because it hasn't yet reached a critical mass, and because investments are very different that we cannot really put them under same category. So the key for us is first scale, second standardization. And that's why we are very excited about being part of a Scale, because thanks to its strong leadership and the support it has gathered, we believe it has the potential to unlock these two key objectives of ours. And we believe this is really the key steps we have to take collectively to unlock private capital outflows, inflows to emerging markets. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think ultimately, therefore, we'll overdo it with final words, but I think we learned it's not about the if we shall invest into blended funds, it's about the how. And therefore, also as we're operations driven, as to state that again, and we cater for the needs of our investors, we think Scaled will really be able to make a difference. So therefore, also if you fancy checking out our website, we have a very customer-friendly QR code. And so I would thank all my panelists for being here. Really, really appreciate it. Anna in the audience, head and soul behind Scaled also is with us. So thanks a lot for having us, and stay tuned. You will hear more from Scaled.
Really good to see you. See you, Eric. Pleasure.